Greetings, sentient beings. This broadcast is not intended for children. There will be strong language and adult themes. So how's everybody doing today?
Well, I've definitely been worse.
Yeah, let's see. We've got Critical Cripple and Compelled Unbeliever and Linda from A Bit of Tea in Danish. And not sure who this is.
What, Dave? Now Kate's allowed on. When was I ever not allowed? I'm very confused by that.
And okay, I'm having a problem with my display here, and I think I know what happened. Yeah, the extension go to channel that I've been using unfortunately went from being a free thing to now being a paid thing, that if you don't pay a monthly subscription, then it
stops working.
Yeah, well, then it's like a 2-hour time limit. It's like, I leave it logged in to YouTube all the time, so 2-hour time limit's ridiculous. Hey, Doc.
Oh, what do you know?
Hello, hello.
Apparently we crap.
Yes, we crap everywhere.
Yeah, well, apparently now that there it goes. When it stopped working, apparently it started like putting the handles in some color or something that I could not read them.
Oh, weird.
Yep. So I couldn't even see who we've got here. Okay, so Godless Sewing, Cleffargle Smash. I don't know who that is. That's someone new. And Greg Hartwick, my patron here. Susan Skeptis Turpin, sorry, someone new. Harmonica Man. Okay, so a couple of new people here today. And yeah, today is Bisexual Visibility Day.
So, ironically enough, you have on a lesbian.
Well, and
a hetero.
Yeah, I'm not technically bisexual. I actually like omnisexual more than pansexual. But in either case, yeah. For me, I'm not going to discriminate on anyone based on gender. That's kind of a secondary thing. If I find someone appealing, what gender they are, yeah, that's somewhere on the level of their hair color.
Well, I have to say that I find dicks horrific, terrifying.
Well, if it's not your thing, everybody's got their preferences.
It's true.
Or even if it's somebody else's thing, apparently.
Yeah.
Just look at it this way, straight women, you can have my share.
I'll probably take you up on that. I'm sure I've had more than my share. Okay, this is... Okay. There. Oh.
So what have you been up to?
Pretty much same stuff, Not too much new with the whole staying inside most of the time. Not a lot of things change.
Yeah, I suppose there is that. I have found myself getting more and more bored as time goes by.
Oh, and we have alias fake name and Dartman. Yeah, I've been mostly shopping for computer components to build a new system.
Oh,
So I've been getting advice from a bunch of people for that, especially Nerdy Rodent and Creighton and GeoSam and Compelled Unbeliever have been helping out with that. So we've got alias fake name and Dartman. I still think alias fake name has the best screen name.
I don't know. I mean, you can't really beat the simple elegance of Bionic Dance. Now,
Well, it's a good one, and part of why it's good is because it asks people where it comes from. That you need to explain it, but that's a conversation starter.
well, there is that, I suppose. It's not why I chose it, though.
So yeah, on my budget, I'm still largely picking components that are being reduced for being older, but I've never. It's been an advantage to always be on the trailing edge of technology, mostly because things are a lot cheaper.
Well, there is that.
I'm also realizing this is the first time since my Commodore 64 that I will have bought a new computer.
Really?
Yeah, well, up till now, that's always been my budget, that I've gotten something that somebody else was getting rid of when they upgraded.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, so I've tended to always be buying a system that was already at least 3 years old when I got it.
Well,
I've had a couple of Frankenstein machines that were cobbled together out of parts from several computers that burned something out.
I've had one or two of those. Hell, the computer I'm on right now is kind of like that. I've been patching it and repairing it so many times. Gonna try to upgrade to a better system or something when my current project is done. But I need certain tools that can only work in Windows 8.1, and I'm not switching in the middle of a project. So yeah, when this project is done, I'm going to look at more modern options. But
yeah, well, just in the time between when I started looking at components and yesterday, over the span of only about a week, apparently some of the people selling online have realized that the next upgrade, like the Ryzen 9s, are going for an upgrade. So the Ryzen 7s, rather dramatically dropped in price. So kind of pressing, spending a bit more than I had intended to, I could probably get into the Ryzen 7. So that's an 8-core processor.
that's another thing that happened at some point is I just fell out of like I guess the computer scene in a way to where now the hardware is nearly incomprehensible. Like I get the software, but there's a lot of hardware terminology where I'm like, I don't remember that being a thing, and now I have to do homework to even understand my computer. This sucks.
Well, I've been getting a rather rapid education in the components because, yeah, I didn't know anything about the current stuff. I haven't really been following the side chat here very well.
Yeah,
Oh, Cheesemondo. Hey.
I should give it more of a look myself too. Wow, I am so not awake today, am I? I should probably get coffee.
Yeah, I can't stand coffee.
I never used to. I learned to appreciate it over time. I think what happened, there was a gateway drug is what happened. Because there were these like iced vanilla latte drink things that you could just like buy in a cooler out of a can, like a soda.
Yeah.
And I am such a huge vanilla fanatic. And so I tried one. And I was like, oh, coffee doesn't necessarily sound like someone ran water through a dirty sock covered in gravel. It's possible to make coffee taste good. And so from then on, I just sort of, yeah.
Nope. Nothing to do with coffee. Nothing, anything coffee flavored.
All right.
And it's entirely possible that a big part of that is the way my dad used to make coffee.
Oh?
Well, yeah, my dad did not believe in always using fresh grounds, so it was basically the same coffee grounds and just like putting an extra spoonful on top each time.
Ugh.
So maybe he might change the grounds in the percolator once a week.
That's just absolutely vile. Oh my gosh. I just, ew.
Yeah, so that may have a lot to do with why I don't like coffee. My brother was an over-the-road trucker, and he would literally fill up his thermos at the truck stop because he couldn't take my dad's coffee.
Oh, that sounds so foul. Oh my gosh. Ew. I mean, ew.
That's coffee abuse.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But then again, caffeine does not seem to affect me.
Well,
Of course, nothing puts me to sleep, so maybe it makes sense that nothing keeps me awake either.
actually, way back in the day, coffee used to knock my ass right the hell out. Or, well, caffeine, I mean, not coffee. Like, I could chug a Mountain Dew as a sleeping pill. It also cured headaches.
I should amend that. Red Bull does have some effect. So apparently the combination of the caffeine and the taurine, so that can be useful when I have to drive and I'm not feeling all there.
Hmm. Where
Oh,
are
hey,
you?
Smokey. Yeah, smoking is also.
Yeah,
I
that
have a very
depends.
hard time with that, even being around smokers, and that was almost the deal breaker with my fiance. Was that she had tried to quit smoking a couple of times, but she had picked it up again.
I mean, no offense to anyone out there, but kissing a smoker is remarkably similar to licking an ashtray. It's so gross.
Yeah. Yeah, and another way is smokers taste bitter.
I'm bitter about that statement. Just kidding. I am a smoker, but I am trying to quit.
Yeah, you
I'm
know,
not,
and
I'm not doing a very good goddamn job, but
Well, do or do not. There is no
I've
try.
never dealt with it myself, but I understand, it's extremely difficult. Well, like I say, my fiance had quit a couple of times, and when I was with her, that yeah, she had finally managed to kick it because she'd been 3 years without a cigarette.
yeah, let me put it this way. If I'm down to like a few cigarettes in a pack and I look over and there's not the next pack sitting right there, I start to get anxiety.
Well, and the weird thing is, like, I was curious, so I tried a cigarette once and never understood how anyone had a second cigarette. It was just that gross.
Yeah, I don't know. I had mixed feelings the first time. But it was like so taboo, and like it was a cool person that wasn't necessarily a close friend, and I was rather young, 12, 13 maybe, and so it was so awesome. I didn't think it was that gross the first time. Just
Yeah, Dartman says a vape pen would help. And, I'm not entirely sure about the vaping, the relative safety of that. I mean, yeah, it's better than cigarettes, but I mean, even sucking water vapor into your lungs isn't a good idea.
it's not a great idea, and they're saying it has all the same toxins.
Yeah. A former roommate of mine used to say that quitting was easy. He had done it dozens of times.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, what you were saying, kid, about the first time you had a cigarette was pretty much how I reacted the first time I had a beer. Yeah,
Oh,
it's like, what's the big deal? Why would anybody drink this stuff?
yeah, beer is not pleasant. I don't understand the appeal of it either.
Yeah, hard
It's like,
lemonade or hard cider is the closest to a beer I could ever get.
aside from just a general desire to get fucked up, I don't see the point of beer.
Well, and if you want to get fucked up, I mean, beer, you got to take in a lot of liquid to do it. If you want to get fucked up, go for some whiskey where you can do it with one glass.
Well, there is that, I suppose.
Otherwise you're just going to the bathroom too many times to get there, and once you get there, getting to the bathroom can be a problem. So,
Yeah, I'll just skip it entirely. I haven't really felt the need to drink alcohol in quite some time.
ah,
It just, at some point, I don't know, my body said, you don't want this anymore. You have no desire for it. And I didn't. I don't know why. I mean, it's not like I was abusing it or anything. It just sort of one day, supreme indifference.
Was it around the time you started smoking weed?
No, quite a bit before, in fact.
Ah, I don't drink often myself. Generally, once every 1 to 3 years.
ah,
Not the biggest fan of it myself, generally. Plus, I have a lot of digestive issues, so I pay a heavy toll.
Oh,
Not
I
that
still
it'll
drink fairly
necessarily kill
regularly,
me,
but
but
yeah, I still drink fairly regularly, but my alcohol consumption has about cut by half since I moved. So yes, having the distance from my biological family makes a huge difference in that.
I have to admit, I miss going to the club every week.
Well, it was kind of a rook that the lockdown started 2 weeks after my move. So part of the idea of moving back here was to, be involved in a bunch of hobby groups and such that I used to belong to. And yeah, everybody suspended meetings until further notice.
Yeah, that sure worked out well.
Yeah, and I've actually gotten a bunch of invites to parties, and everybody's, saying that, yeah, well, when we can have house parties again.
Right. Well, okay, this one kind of pisses me off. My neighbors are throwing parties in the courtyard down in the like below place here in our complex, and there's no social distancing and no masks anywhere. And I'm just like, you fucking fuckers should probably not be doing that.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, it's not even really any of my business because it's not like their shenanigans will affect me, but it's still like, why would you do that?
If they're spreading a virus, it can affect you.
Are they though? I mean, I don't know how far it can reach. Like, could it go up a story and like, I don't know.
Well, maybe not directly, but it's just the more people who have it, the more likely you are to encounter it.
There is that. I've actually wondered sometimes, like, how close have I been to Corona? Like, what's the closest I've ever been to any bits of it?
And that's the problem. There's no way for you to tell.
Yeah.
Because at best, even people who get it, it's probably 2 weeks between when they get it and when they start showing symptoms. So in that time, how many people have they talked to?
And the part that just floors me is how this could have been over so long ago. Just a bunch of people decided they had to be selfish.
Yeah. If people had, had taken the voluntary quarantine and the mask more seriously, we probably would have been past this by now.
Well, I'm about to have a lot of fun at work. I work in a hotel, and so far they haven't been really mandating people wearing masks so much. But starting next month, and I believe this is going to be all hotels in America. It's possible it's not, but at least mine is going to be instituting mandatory masks for all employees and guests.
I'm frankly shocked that wasn't already implemented.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't yet either, but finally they're going to do it, and it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I have to ask the boss. I don't even know how we're supposed to enforce it. But I don't know if we have to call the cops if they refuse to leave or put on the mask, or what we have to do. So
yeah, and I wind up feeling really bad, for the store employees, because it's like, yeah, these people are being paid minimum wage. They're not being paid nearly enough to deal with these people who don't want to follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's just our job to enforce them, whether we want to or not.
Yeah.
It's not about our opinion. If we want to come to work, and if we don't want to wear masks, and we want to work and make a living, but if we're going to throw a fit about it and get fired over it, where the hell are we going to get work? I mean, and more and more around here.
Yeah,
and it's kind of a good thing.
Don't really have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, and it's a good thing. I mean,
they've got to keep working.
More and more around here, more businesses are enforcing the masks. So I think it is kind of a good thing that that's happening, but the fallout is not going to be fun.
Well, we've had a state mask mandate here since the middle of July. And it's like when I have to go to the grocery store, it's still like 1 out of 3 people aren't wearing a mask.
At all?
Oh, yeah.
Generally not at all.
Because
Or doing something shitty with it, like, only wearing it halfway.
Yeah, because there are still the occasional people dick nosing here in San Diego, but it's not that common. So, yeah.
Well, and I think it has to do somewhat with the local infection rate of whether or not they know someone who's gotten it.
I actually had to argue with a Lyft driver because I didn't want to be in the car while he was dick nosing. And he was really rude about it.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, I'd feel uncomfortable with that too.
I mean, and the part that kills me, he probably thought that I was being a Karen when I said I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're being a Karen when your own safety is involved.
Well, and that's
Saying.
just here in the apartment complex. There are signs up all over about social distancing, and there's signs that say only one person in the elevator at a time. And one day it's like another guy's getting into the elevator and he's holding the door and he's saying, come on, I'm not sick. And it's like, you don't get it. You could have been infected a week ago and not be aware of it yet.
Yep.
I'm wondering what we're supposed to do about the swimming pool if we're enforcing masks.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's another thing I need to ask the boss.
I honestly would have thought a swimming pool would be off limits.
It was for a while, but a few months ago they opened it when they started opening everything back up.
Yep.
Where is this hillbilly moonman village you're living in?
No, it's not just where he is, and I'm in Minnesota, and there, some of the pools around here got open too.
Ugh. Ugh.
And again, that it's something I wish I could take advantage of, because it's like we're right by a YMCA, and it would have been nice to get a membership just so I could go and use the pool, but yeah, not doing that.
Well, my favorite part is they opened our swimming pool and they opened our exercise room. So our exercise room has towels and a bin to place your used towels. Guess who has the fun job of collecting those used towels and putting them in the laundry? Moi.
Wilbur Blankenship.
Yeah, I wish, but it falls to the graveyard shifter, and I get to play with people's dirty towels.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing that ticked me off is, people are using the disposable masks, and then they're just like dropping them on the ground in the parking lot.
What?
And
the hell?
Like, okay, I have the reflex to pick up trash and throw it out when I see things like that. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not safe here. But yeah, realizing somebody has to. And I've actually been seeing reports that it's becoming a real hazard for, birds and wildlife, that they get tangled up in the straps from the mask.
Oh, I would like to address Compelled Unbeliever's question there. From what I read, the CDC has stated that there is no evidence COVID can be transferred in chlorine water, swimming pool water. That's not to say that it is guaranteed to not be able to survive in chlorine water. You'd think the chlorine would kill it. I don't know. But that's all I know about that is that the CDC has simply said there is no evidence, not that it can't, just that there is no evidence
Well,
that it can be passed in chlorine water.
I would tend to think that the chlorine would kill it on contact. But again, that still leaves a lot of other possibilities, like you say about the towels and that, and just, yeah, the chlorine will kill it when it hits the water. But if people are running around the area without masks, it's still airborne.
Yeah, exactly. You can definitely smell the chlorine in the air, and it's very humid in the pool room. It's the most humid spot in the place.
Yeah.
So I don't know if some chlorine can be floating around in the air, killing it too. I wouldn't count on it, but it's possible.
Well, in case I would think it would kind of be a percentage thing. Because,
yeah.
again, the chlorine that comes in contact with it might kill it, but
Yep.
that's only going to knock out, maybe like 10 or 20% of what's in the air.
Yep. And you're going to have different concentrations of chlorine over here and different concentrations of COVID over there. And
yeah.
So yep, fun.
Yeah, Sloth Girl was just going out for like the first time in 2 weeks now because she was having some issues. But
fire can kill it. That's what I want to fill the pool with. Fire.
well, why don't you make it a pool of lava to get people prepared for when they go to hell?
I gotta go, guys, real quick. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, we'll catch you later.
Yo, peace.
Been out of it myself today.
Yeah, I've never been in it, so.
Well, I've the last couple of days having been required to get up earlier, and it's not that I'm getting to sleep any earlier, so.
Yeah, I know how that goes. It takes me usually a couple weeks to adjust to a new sleep schedule.
I just don't adjust. I've never had any consistent sleep schedule. But unfortunately, it's been lately to the point that I'm not getting to sleep until like 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oof.
So, yeah. And then if you want me to even wake up at 10, that still means I'm only getting 3 hours that I'm even horizontal. And it takes it pretty much an hour for me to fall asleep after I lay down. So, yeah, I'm just getting 2 or 3 hours of sleep a day.
Oof. That's rough. You need your REM phases.
Yeah. Well, and I know I'm getting a bit of that. I'm aware that I've had a dream, but definitely not enough of it.
See, that's the weird thing. I've of course read about how they say that you don't really dream until you're in the REM phase, but I have me some vivid dreams when I doze off. I can be dozing off watching a show, and it can be for 15 minutes, it can be for 30, 45 minutes, and that's not long enough to go into REM. And I can have some pretty vivid dreams in that little doze.
Well, the REM
I don't know if they're and I don't know if they're dreams or if they're just sort of, often enough I'm like watching a show or playing a video game and I fall asleep, and I'll continue thinking about the video game, and then like things happen, and they can be pretty vivid things. So I don't know if it's some weird sort of semi-conscious, I don't know, stream of consciousness or whatever, but
Hey, Tria.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, the REM is not the deep stage of sleep. The REM's an intermediate stage. So of the 5 stages, the REM is like stage 3.
Real? Are you sure? Because it's my understanding that the average sleep cycle for an adult is about an hour and a half on average.
Right. Yeah.
And it takes you the other phases to get to to REM, which lasts 10 minutes.
No.
Generally, it's like the last
pass
10 minutes.
through
So that's what
REM,
I thought.
Yeah, when you're in the deepest stage of sleep, your brain is more shut down. It doesn't have as much activity as it does in the REM.
Okay.
Hey,
I'll
Dave,
have to read up on that more.
how are you doing?
Howdy.
Hello there,
what you're
Dave.
describing is called hypnagogia. I've made a couple of videos about that. I have hypnagogia, which is it's classified as a sleep disorder. I would kind of argue it's a mental disorder, but what you do is you go into you skip a bunch of sleep cycles, and you go into your REM state before you become unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens with me is I start to go to sleep. First, I start dreaming. Eventually, I will pass into unconsciousness. In that period of time, my dreams are filed away as active memories, not dreams. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so a lot of times if I dream, I'm thinking about work or something like that, and I dream about it in that time, whatever I dreamed about that happened at work actually happened to me in my memory. So I have to, in some ways, like I have to keep my house really clean, because where did I put the keys? If I don't put them in the same place every day, all the time, I may dream that I left them somewhere else. Well, if I think, okay, I got to go somewhere, and think, okay, where are my keys? I will go to the wrong place.
Yeah.
And I can, so I've just learned it's easier to just keep them in one place, so I don't even have to think about where did I put my keys.
Yeah, I've experienced that on a couple of occasions of either having to sequence things or having to ask other people if something actually happened.
Oh yeah, and that's a very, very big issue for me. In fact, that was my first God experience. That was my first big God experience. I didn't know I had hypnagogic hallucinations, when I was 15. It wasn't until I was in my 30s, but I had this God experience, and it literally changed my life. That's what made me want to become a preacher and led to my hyper religiosity and all that. But I realized when I was 37, I was like, wait a minute. I was lying down in my bed when that happened. I was going to sleep. Oh, crap. I did hallucinate the entire thing. But to me, it was real, and I acted on that, and it changed my life. Because it was a real active cognitive memory while I was awake, if that makes sense at all.
It does.
Yeah, I've also at times experienced, that I've had some false memories.
Well, see,
And I didn't realize it at the time, but I wonder if it wasn't connected to that.
My mother and my grandmother were both paranoid schizophrenics, from what I am told. And so the reason I would argue is I would kind of put it in the mental illness department, particularly with a severity like mine. My mother is schizophrenic, so her reality was just slightly different from ours. So she would actively hallucinate while she was awake and act those out throughout the day. But it was so close to reality that everybody else looked freaking weird to her. And of course, she looked weird to everybody else. But that does not happen with me. I remember I did stuff that I did not do. I don't actually act it out because I'm unconscious and paralyzed. Or, well, conscious and paralyzed and dreaming. So I think so I kind of understand what it's, in a sense, what it's like for a schizophrenic. It's just that I don't actively act out those hallucinations. I just remembered things that didn't happen. Everybody's silent. Am I making sense here?
No, yeah, you're making perfect sense.
You
I
are.
was,
I just
Oh, yeah.
don't have anything to add. This is out of my wheelhouse.
I was actually going to say, I wonder if maybe it's not necessarily a mental disorder in itself, but it would cause, like the deleterious effects that it causes your mind
Yeah,
would
you know what?
would be considered a separate condition, a mental disorder,
This is something I would love.
related to your sleep disorder.
Yeah, I'd love to sit down and kind of talk to like Shannon Q about this, because she knows more about the mind and stuff than I do. But I think
Certainly.
in my case, I was already an extreme perfectionist. So then you put the indoctrination on top of that. Well, I wanted to be the perfect Christian. So I was a little OCD about that in the first place. Then I have this hypnagogic hallucination in which I thought I had a God experience. So now what wasn't a mental illness, a hallucination of a memory, now I became hyper religious, that I believe it was truly mental illness. And so with what you were saying, I think like the religion in that respect, and it could be any other thing, but it exacerbated it. It made it into a actual mental illness. You know what I'm saying? Because I acted on those those false memories.
Yeah, well, and
Yep.
I was thinking a similar thing, that could it lead to a mental illness just because you have a slightly disconnected reality?
And I think it did with me. But once I realized that I was hallucinating and so forth, then now sometimes I have to ask my family. Most times I will look like I'm dazed and confused when I wake up or whatever, because I'm trying to recall my dreams and I'm trying to differentiate what did happen and what didn't happen earlier in the day.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I know I've had that experience of waking up and trying to sort out between what was a dream and what had happened before I went to bed.
Well, I mean, hell, just not sleeping correctly can completely warp your brain. I'm convinced that taking care of my mom and my sister and the lack of sleep that I got doing that caused so much changes in my brain that it caused me to start having migraines when I hadn't had them before. My migraines started the same year that I took care of my mom and my sister. And my memory issues happened around the same time. And yes, as you hit your 30s, 40s, and 50s, your brain doesn't work quite as well. But the thing is that it was such a fucking drastic change.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a small, tiny bit by bit over time. It was just like, nope, your brain is in a semi-permanent fog now. Have fun. Deal with that forever.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I have
um,
bouts of severe insomnia where, I literally will only sleep like an hour or two for days at a time. And when that gets on to about the third day, I've started hallucinating.
I haven't ever
and
hallucinated, but I do remember at one point where my brain went into this weird panic mode where I wasn't there, but my body was still functioning. And I was doing everyday normal things like cooking, cleaning, taking care of my family. And my brain was going, no, 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 no. You can't sleep even though you need it. And you have to do all of these things because there's nobody else. And one of my friends happened by at that time, and he had to fight me to go to bed. Like, there was a physical fight to get me to go to bed.
Yep, and just sleep deprivation. It's terrible for your body. I mean, you go without sleep long enough, your organs start to fail, it just messes with your body chemistry, most certainly your brain chemistry. So, all of that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, during that time, there were a lot of times where I would go 4 days and only get maybe an hour's worth of sleep. And it would happen at least once every other week. And I would beg people for help, and people would be like, well, you have your sister and your mom and your dad. And I was just like, dad is working and my sister is some help, but I'm also kind of taking care of her at the same time. So thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand you got a lot to juggle with taking care of your family there.
It's not that bad right now. My dad doesn't really need a lot of help. My sister, stuff with her is kind of slowed down because we literally can't go anywhere. And most everything is whatever it's called. There's a technical term for video calls when you're doing doctor stuff. Most of that's been done that, and she'll pass the phone over to me if she needs something. Pretty much, for her therapy appointments, I sit completely out of the room so that she has privacy. But for doctor's appointments, I'm usually in the room so that if she's giving me the I don't know what's going on stare, I can jump in. But yeah, it's mostly what I'm dealing with now is my own boredom and my own cabin fever. Because I like staying home, but I don't like being stuck at home all the time. I'm not that much of a homebody.
Yeah, I have to say it hasn't bothered me nearly as much as it would most people. Unfortunately, I also feel that I'm kind of forced to go out more often than I want to because just the way things have worked out, the online stuff I do has been much more active than it normally would be. So I wind up having to go out at least twice a week just to bring stuff to the post office.
Yeah, but that also puts food on the table, so there's that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's become my main source of income now because I haven't been able to build up a customer base for my home repairs.
So at some point in time, I interrupt this broadcast.
Yeah.
Because Purple, I know you're dying to know. I was planning on making a video about this. I probably won't now. About 3 weeks ago, I was working. I experienced vertigo symptomology. I went to the emergency room, was diagnosed with vertigo, and I did have vertigo. But 4 days ago, I had another event where I lost about 20% of my hearing, and I'm having all kinds of other neurological things. Yesterday, I went to the ENT specialist, and my ears are functioning correctly. It is a neurological issue. 3 years ago, I had a stroke where I was temporarily blinded halfway in one eye. My brother had a stroke at 23. My grandmother had, I don't know how many strokes, and her sister did too. So they're in my family. So we do not know for sure what it is. It looks like I'm stroking out. We're just going to get down to brass tacks. Looks like I'm having many strokes. That being said, I came to the realization that, of course, I could just suddenly have a big one, and it's more likely than with other people. We'll just put it that way. If so, strokes can be fatal. So that's where I'm at. My cognitive ability is decreased. I can't type very well. There's all kinds of weird symptoms that I'm having, and it comes and goes. Sometimes I can walk pretty easy, and sometimes I'm off balance. I don't know, but if it goes at the rate that it's going, it's not going to be very good. That being said, I may heal up on my own and never have any issues ever again. You just don't know. But with everything as it is, I'm, putting my affairs together and so forth. So I do not know how long my or how much I will be able to do my channel. The reason I don't want to really make a video about it is I don't know if I can edit it right now, because any time I have to do a tactile type tasks, it's getting harder. I think I may have had an event yesterday or another one yesterday. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I know
so
you've got previous history with it, but Greg Hartwick makes the point that it has been associated with some COVID cases.
oh, really? I haven't had any fevers or any kind of congestion, coughing, anything like
Okay.
that.
So not having any kind of other symptoms.
No, it look. I mean, it may not be strokes, and I may be kind of, but it's kind of what it looks like, and I'm just being real.
Yeah.
Well, and
It's
also-
scary. There's a history of it in my family.
Yeah. If there's a family history there, yeah.
And I already have had a stroke. My brother had one at 23. That's, so
Pretty young.
Everything
Yeah.
fits right now, but they haven't done the testing, so they're not going to say it, and I don't blame them, because they haven't confirmed it yet. So right now I'm trying to get an appointment with a neurologist, or actually they are. That being said, no sad faces or anything like that. It's just, you guys could beat me to dying in a car wreck tomorrow. So you got to take things into perspective, right?
Yep.
Well, we appreciate the update because I saw you posting some of that stuff to the Twitter groups.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just yours. So that's where I'm at. So my channel could suddenly stop. I don't know. And I may just get better. So the biggest bummer right now is I lost my job and I can't file for unemployment because you have to be able to work. Well, I haven't gotten a diagnosis, so I've just been sitting on my butt. I'm not working.
Oh boy.
I don't know how I'm going to pay rent or whatever. No, I'm not asking. Nobody do anything. I'll figure it out. But it's like, okay, so it's just one of those things of, okay, looking at all my options, giving my girlfriend full power of attorney in case something happens. Just make things easier.
Yeah.
But I have definitely had a couple of events. Sometimes I can't talk. The interesting thing is, I have really weird things. If you were to tell me how to bake a cake, there's no way in hell I could possibly follow your instructions. I could not do it. I could go bake a cake. I could probably read the directions and do it, but I can't. Sometimes I can follow directions and sometimes I cannot. So now my girlfriend's helping me because, when there's doctors telling you to do stuff, I'm like, I just looked at this doctor and said, just tell her,
Oh boy.
So it's frustrating in some ways. And there's other weird things. It's neurological. I don't, it's, I'm deaf, partially deaf, but I'm also hypersensitive to hearing too. And if I go to a store or something like that, like a Walmart, all the ambient noise, then I can only hear about 40% or understand about 40% of what is said to me. But that also depends on the person's tone of voice. I mean, it's crazy. But all they could find out at ENT was that they was neurological.
Well, and for the hearing loss to be so sudden would be incredibly alarming.
Yeah, and I did get an MRI 3 weeks ago, and they did not mention anything, obviously, of a brain tumor or lesion or anything like that, but I was also in there for vertigo, so they may not have put the microscope to it, and if I had something really huge, obviously they would have known. you know. But though I'm sure they'll re-review that since we're looking at something different than vertigo.
Yeah, I also
Yeah.
can't stress enough the importance of that paperwork you were saying about giving your girlfriend power of attorney.
Yeah, I got to get
And
that
that's
done.
I don't know, what your relationship with your family is, but that was one of the things that my fiance and I had talked about that, and we had never gotten the paperwork done. And yeah, when she died, I was told that all my legal rights ended the moment she died. So it all fell to her mother, who really didn't even want to acknowledge I existed.
So I want to go on and talk about what I really want to talk about now.
Okay.
So I like I said, I've had to come to the true realization that it looks like I'm having mini strokes, and if I am having mini strokes, I could have a big one and suddenly just be dead. I think I'm being realistic there, right? I mean, am I not being realistic there? Am I not thinking, properly?
No, it sounds like you've got things thought out pretty well.
Okay, so I get this news, and so I'm thinking about my affairs, and the biggest thing was I don't want to be incapacitated and have my girlfriend wipe my ass all of her life, and she's the type of person that will do that. So and thinking about my kids, my apartment, my kids that live here, my grandson, and so forth, all these different things, and at the end of the day, the one thing that astounded me was. I was a fundamentalist Christian, indoctrinated from birth. I was kind of, I think, beginning to have doubts around 27, but I certainly did not admit to being an atheist until I was well into my 40s, and I would have called myself a Christian. What astounded me at the end of the day was I was thinking about making videos and so forth, and what came to mind is this Christian notion that, well, at the last moment, everybody's going to have a get back to God, moment. Well, the thing is right now, just because of the nature of the condition, if I had a sudden stroke and died, I probably wouldn't even know it. So I'm not going to have the opportunity to have that last coming to God moment, and it just did not come to mind. I did not care. It wasn't until I was thinking about making videos and so forth, I just thought how odd that was that it did not come to mind. There was no God coming to God moment. God doesn't exist. It cannot. The God of the Bible cannot exist. So why would there be a coming to God moment? And if there is going to be the one, it has to be right now. It has to be right now. And no. So in the future, if any, if something does happen, if any Christians want to try to say that I had a last coming to God moment, or that every atheist does, to me, this is because I mean, realistically, I may not finish this live stream. I may live for another 50 years, but it's just immediate thought concerning what I found out yesterday. And it could be some other neurological thing, could be fixed. I don't know, but I certainly had to think about it. And I had to think about it very seriously. That's what my point is. I'm not trying to overstate whatever it is. I may be fine in 2 weeks or tomorrow.
Yeah, but you don't know. Everything has to be done immediate.
But yeah. So, but I think as an adult human being, I have to take it seriously, right? Particularly since my brain isn't working right. But I just thought that was very interesting. Yeah. What are your guys' thoughts on that, about the coming to God moment?
Yeah, well, along with that, like you say, with the strokes and that, even if you did have that kind of coming to God moment, I would have to be questioning if it's a hallucination.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly in my case.
Yeah.
That already has that issue, But I mean, as long as I'm cognitive, and I know I'm cognitive now, I'm of sound mind. No, it's just not going to happen. Why would I have a coming to Scooby-Doo moment? You know, and it's the same way.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much spot on because whether anything's going on or not, if anytime people think their mortality is right around the corner, they're certainly fearful, and they're going to contemplate what they contemplate, and if there's ever a time an atheist would have this universal reversion, maybe I should say apostate, not necessarily atheist, has this throwback revelation. This is the time.
It just astounded me that it was the furthest thing from my mind.
Yep.
I guess there was some part of hearing that from the Christians thinking, well, maybe in my case, but due to my childhood indoctrination, maybe that could be possible, but I really doubted it. And, now with the news yesterday and thinking about things and so forth, that no, it just didn't happen. It's not going to happen. Not as long as I'm sound mind.
Yeah, Nerdy makes a good point that if there was some God that interacted with us, you don't think he'd wait till the last minute.
You'd think he wouldn't wait till our brains are scrambled eggs to talk to us.
Well, particularly if he wanted us to be in heaven with him, then why would he make it so difficult? Why would he create me in such a way that I doubt and do not believe in him? He would know that I do not actually believe in him and that I never could. Thus, if I never believe in him and I am going to hell, it is his fault.
Yeah,
pretty much. He made you that way. He wrote your life before it happened. Yeah.
As a child, when I was like 8 years old, that was the first crack in my faith. Was I could not reconcile the idea of there being an all-loving God and there being hell. The two were just so at odds with each other. And that's something I asked my mom and I asked the nuns and, the priests about this. And it's like, I never got a good answer to that.
And that's it, particularly if the claim is he's omnibenevolent.
Yeah, it just didn't make any sense that, if he was all loving, why would he allow half his creations to fry?
Mm-hmm. And Greg there is right. Then we get into free will. If God, even if God didn't necessarily plan or design every event of the future, if God simply knows the future, even if God knows all possible futures, he knows which one is going to come about, which one is going to manifest. Even if that is true, there is no free will. There's nothing you can do to change the future. It would be set even if God didn't set it himself. And if everything's part of God's plan, well, then God set everything in fucking self. The skein of your life was woven a long time ago.
Yeah, I have a lot of difficulty with the whole free will thing. It's something I started making a video on that I haven't finished, but I've got to get around to it.
And also, how can prayer work? People say if they pray and they get what they want, oh, well, then God answered my prayers. But what about the times when you pray and you didn't get what you want? Oh, well, then it's God's will,
Yeah.
Well, if it's God's will, if God, if it's God's will, then your prayer wasn't going to work anyway, and what good is, and, God made his divine plan, planned everything out, set it into motion. What good is a divine plan if it can be disrupted by some schmuck with a $2 prayer book?
Right.
That's a George Carlin joke. I have to give credit.
Yep. Yeah, if prayers can actually change God's plan, that just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy pants.
I joke about
in a-
going. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done, Doc. Go ahead.
I just wanted to amend, not crazy in an ableist way, just it doesn't make sense to me way, I guess.
I joke a lot about going to outer darkness, which is the Mormon version of hell, unless they change the doctrine. Technically, I am not going to outer darkness. I would actually be going to probably the lowest kingdom of heaven. So for me, my God belief, it's like, well, the top tier heaven sounds like shit to me, so bottom tiers sounds kind of cool. At least I'm there with people like Bowie and Freddie Mercury.
That would be very cool.
Yeah. So for me, this whole fear of hell thing, like, don't get me wrong, fear was a major, major, major control method in the Mormon church. It's
it always is.
a different form, and this fear of hell when you're dying sounds so weird to me because that's not the God I was taught to believe in.
You know, one interesting thing for me, this is another thing that I thought was very odd, is I have zero fear of death. It just doesn't bother me at all. Now, the idea of dying as a verb, as actively dying, knowing that I'm dying, well, yeah, I don't want to do that. That the idea of that scares me because I just don't want to do it. That's kind of unpleasant, you know.
Yeah, I know what
I
you
would
mean.
rather go all at once. But I literally have no fear of death. Like I said, my biggest concerns were my kids and my girlfriend. And of course, being incapacitated, because that sucks for everybody. But the thought of actively dying or knowing that I'm dying, yeah, that sucks, and I don't want to do that. But I'm not really afraid of what's coming up. It's just, charge full ahead. Maybe the reason I have an attitude like this is my father was very, very, very sick, man, and believe it or not, for 10 years of my life, from 9 to 19, I was told that he had about a month to live. Which is kind of funny. So maybe it's just because I kind of dealt with this kind of thing all my life, and the attitude I grew up with, that I'm looking at it the way I am.
Microraptor, to answer your question, isn't outer darkness Kent Hovind's mind? Mormon version is more fun than that. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I keep saying that Satan throws better parties. And honestly, the idea of the Christian heaven freaks me out a hell of a lot more than hell would. Because my experience has taught me that any amount of pain, physical or mental, if it goes on long enough, will eventually numb down to being just background noise. So I don't believe the idea of eternal torture is even possible. I'll get used to it eventually.
Yep. Everything seems strange and terrifying, or terrifying, until you get used to it, until it becomes normal.
Yep. And I mean, there's plenty of research on that, of how the human mind adapts to the most horrendous situations. That people in war situations, and people even who survive the concentration camps, that your mind finds a way to normalize it so you can live through the situation.
Although there is a movie that presents an interesting version of hell. You ever watch any of the Hellraiser movies?
No, I never saw those.
One of them, I can't remember which one, fourth or fifth one. It's the protagonist basically goes to hell, but he doesn't. And spoiler alert here, I should say, because this is pretty much the whole thing. Like he doesn't realize he's in hell. But there's a sequence of events that happens, and then basically he dies or something, and then instead of dying, he goes back to the beginning and relives it over and over again, like, you know, a number of days or weeks or whatever it is, and he just keeps reliving it over and over again, and he starts like going crazy from and it's like shitty experiences one after the other, and then it culminates into something really bad, and then he has to start it all over again. And you know, finally, when the Cenobites, like Pinhead and all the demons or whatever you want to call them, show up, they explain that, oh, you're already in hell. You've been in hell this whole time. Hell is about repetition. So basically, it's not so much that you're suffering the worst torture imaginable. You're just reliving these shitty experiences over and over again for eternity. And that could be worse than just, you know, being changed to a rack and being whipped or poked with hot pokers or something for eternity.
You know, Bart Ehrman,
that could be far worse.
I can't remember. Was it? I think it was a pre-Grecian cultures and so forth, where they were talking about the worst hell was it going over and over and over. There's a repetition of certain events and so forth.
Yeah, just quick to address Greg Hartwith's question. Old Scratch is a reference to the devil, especially from some of the Norse and the Northern Germanic tribes.
I don't know the etymology to that, though. It'd be an interesting one to look up.
And so would that would have been introduced post-Christianity, correct?
Yeah, basically it was kind of when Christianity was being introduced to the area, and they were trying to kind of reconcile it with the pagan traditions of the Northern Germanic groups.
I don't know. I'm sure there's a name for this. I claim to be an amateur historian and so forth, but what I love to do is track the different traditions from one culture and one religion to another. And when you do that, you can literally see the evolution of Christianity from the time before they were Canaanites, you know?
Yeah, and the Norse religions didn't really have a devil. They had Loki, you know, who was a trickster. He enjoyed screwing with people.
The god of deceit.
Yeah. And actually, one of the things I found most interesting, you know, I do kind of fall back on the Norse if I have to, just because that's my heritage, that my mother's side is Finnish. But one of the things is the way that most Christians envision heaven is all this, you know, endless white puffy clouds and worshiping all day, and, you know, and it's like, actually that sounds a lot like the Viking version of hell. Helheim doesn't have any demons or fire or lakes of lava. It's just described as being an endless barren landscape of mind-numbing boredom. So to me, the Christian heaven and the Viking hell sound like pretty much the same place.
Isn't that interesting that they're a seafaring nation? And to me, that sounds like a seafaring hell. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I
And
was
maybe I'm
thinking of it more in
you know,
terms of, being up on the Arctic tundra where
mhm.
for half the year everything's covered in snow and ice and that's all you see is white.
Right. I think
Yeah.
that could be. It would be interesting to find out if there's any way if that was the root of that belief.
And then it would be interesting to find out if I mean this is speculation, not theory, really, but based on that, I'm almost betting their vision of hell came from dreams, because, like Purple said, they spend a hell of a lot of time, looking at a winter wonderland. What sort of things do you think pop into their dreams a lot?
Hey, Doc. I want to first of all compliment you. The only way we can learn is by asking questions. You know what I'm saying?
You bet.
And what you're not doing is saying, well, they had dreams and this is why it was, which is what I see a lot of what's the word? It's not coming to me. Kind of like assigning agency or whatever and making the assumption, but you didn't do that there. You said it would be interesting to know if, and so I just wanted to point that out, because so many people we deal with would automatically go in that other direction, but you still kept it a question, and I just wanted to point that out and compliment you on that.
Awesome, yeah. Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I try not to assert that which I do not know. And how do I really know anything? So how can I really assert anything with, any sort of zeal?
Yeah, and with what Microraptor said here, this is another thing that I had a problem with heaven. Was my brother is kind of a born-again Christian, somewhere on the level between fundamentalist and zealot. And yeah, that it's another contradiction with heaven, is because his idea is that we'll all be up there together all the time, and it's like, yeah, if I have to put up with him 24 hours a day, that's my hell, not heaven.
Yeah, like, my sister is about the only person I can spend 24/7 with. And the thought of being with all of my family members, including the super conservative, hyper religious ones, that doesn't sound fun.
Well, my brother has instituted this thing the last couple of years that he calls his brother's weekend, which is us four brothers just being together without any of the women folk around. And that's, yeah, just being with him for 3 days. It really pushes on as much as I can take.
Oof.
Don't fall.
Well, I have heard someone's answer to all of that is basically, well, our aggravations with our family members are worldly problems and we won't care as much when we're in heaven. And so I'm like, so what you're saying is God can't accept me as I am and I have to have a personality change. And why does that sound good?
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the thing with my brother is that he doesn't want to admit to who I am. And it's like, yeah, it even happened that when he was reminded that I'm no longer Christian, he just took it as a devastating blow, like this was new information. And it's like, you knew this 25 years ago.
Yeah, family's not exactly the best listeners sometimes. It depends on the family. Like, if you have a great family, I don't begrudge you that. Like, but some of us are out here like, holy shit, why do we even have to associate with these people?
I mean, I think it's wonderful for people who can have close ties with their family. I mean, it would be nice to feel I had that kind of support, but no. The only way I could do that with my family is to be very closeted about who I really am.
Yeah, no, and that's not good. I mean, I had to act like I was Mormon for a while for my own safety, and I couldn't do that. That's actually why I moved out of my parents' house.
I think this one's for you, Tria.
Yes, that would be a worldly problem that would be resolved in heaven. And I
So
see.
this, so the
I really
psychological
should say,
damage
yeah.
I'm sorry. So the psychological damage you carry to heaven is still just a worldly problem, huh?
It doesn't exist. It will be. It's basically how they describe it is when you get resurrected and you get your perfect body, that including your mind, God will erase those traumas for you if you are a good person.
Well, how nice.
Yeah, like it's really, really hard to describe because most people don't get the concept of erasure. Erasure sounds really simple, but there's so many layers to it. Like pretty much what I've been told is if I was a good Mormon girl and I did all of the things, I would somehow become heterosexual in the next life because that's how part of the whole becoming God thing. And I'm just like, you do realize that you're basically saying that my personality would be erased in the next life in order to make God happy with me.
For me, it was a major cognitive dissonance. The whole the heaven idea was okay. I was cool with that, but there are some Christian denominations that believe that if a person has never heard of the gospel, that they will go to hell. The Bible itself says that many are called, but few are chosen, and it's specifically talking about going to heaven. Okay, let's take a look at that sentence. Many are called, so not everyone is called to be with God. It's many, and we don't know how many that many is, but out of that many that are chosen to be with God, or that are called to be with God, only a few of them are chosen. So literally what that passage is telling us is that most everybody's going to hell and we don't have a damn choice in it.
Well, and isn't it especially the Mormons who said there's like a limited number, 144,000?
They don't really
That's
teach the 144,000.
That's the Jehovah's Witnesses.
That's Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay, that's Jehovah's.
So how can I believe, if I believe in this heaven thing and I believe what the Bible says, God is an asshole. So why would I want to worship him? And particularly when I don't, that passage makes it pretty damn clear that he's already determined who he's going to choose in the first place. So no matter what, I don't have a chance. If God knows where I'm going, heaven or hell, if he is all knowing, then it does not matter what I do with my life. And I'm not taking nihilist position here. I'm looking at the Christian theology. If God knows if I'm going to heaven or hell before I am born, it does not matter what I do. If I'm destined to go to hell, I could be the best person on the entire planet. I'm going to hell. If he knows I'm going to heaven, I could be the worst person on the planet and actively try to be so. And I still get to go to heaven. So that's not just. It's not a just. God and the whole heaven concept falls apart for me right there.
Yep. And to answer Microraptor there, I am currently not religious, but I have been through 2 religions. So I'm an apostate twice.
I went from Mormon to Christian light. Like, I still considered myself Christian for a very long time, but I didn't Like, I did a stint with the Southern Baptist for a little while because my roommate was going, but I wasn't really serious about it. I basically just like went to church with my roommate for social stuff, and then was like, okay, I'm Christian, I just don't worship or go to church or anything like that. And then, like, once I figured out all of the flaws with Mormonism, now granted, Mormonism has its own flavor of stuff, and some of it does not apply to Christianity as a whole. But there are things that applied to my previous beliefs that do apply to Christianity as a whole, such as "you must love me or else" is an abusive statement.
Yeah.
And that was kind of how it was in Mormonism. It was, you must love me or else. You must do things my way or else.
I think that one's a pretty Christian-wide phenomenon.
That is pretty Christian-wide. It's just the way Mormonism handles that is slightly different because, again, Mormon hell is very, 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 very few people are actually going to go to the Mormon version of hell. Basically, doctrine states that you have to have seen God himself and then deny that he exists.
Interesting.
Which was Joseph Smith's way of saying fuck you to people who called him out after they started realizing just how bad he was.
Yep.
They teach at church that the 3 witnesses, and I think it was the 8 witnesses of the Book of Mormon, never denied the Book of Mormon afterwards, which is true, but it's not the whole truth. They never took back their claims on the Book of Mormon because they were still technically profiting off of it. But out of the 11 men who said, oh, yeah, we totally saw the gold plates and we saw this and that and the other, basically said, Joe is an asshole and he's a con man and he's doing shitty things and nobody should have anything to do with him. And then Joseph basically said, everybody gets a version of heaven except for you fuckers over there because you pissed me off.
Well,
and that's the only reason outer darkness exists.
The Mormon perspective is kind of unique as far as having the different levels of heaven. I don't think that's really in any other version of Christianity.
I don't think it is, but it's based on some concepts from the Masons. I don't quite know because the Masons are kind of secretive, and any information you find out is basically leaked, and you can't really know what's true or not.
Okay, let me. If I could speak to that, there are theories. First of all, it's a Gnostic thinking is what it is, and there are theories that the Gnostics kind of went underground, became the Rosicrucians. The Rosicrucians became the Masons, and then of course Joseph Smith was a Mason, and also the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses was a Mason. And there are Messianic overtones. Okay. Coincidentally, there are things that happen to coincide with Masonry and so forth, that at least with the Jehovah's Witness, but I cannot say that is directly the reason, but it's highly suspicious as far as I know.
Joseph was a Mason, and they found out that he was a shitty asshole and they kicked him out. And then Joseph said, well, fine. I'm going to just take what I learned and do my own.
But I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump in real quick, but what I was getting to is that the the levels of heaven and so forth, that was Gnostic thinking.
Okay.
So,
That's fair. I know the handshakes were directly stolen from the Masons. Also, Greg, I don't like the own planet thing, and this is a personal gripe of which I am still salty about. Okay. God didn't create Earth. He created the universe. So when you become like God, do you get your own planet? Or can you create a universe like God can? That's the biggest lie that I was told that I'm still mad about. Because as a kid, I used to imagine what kind of planets I would create in the afterlife. Not just a planet, but a universe of my own. Still mad. Sorry. That's I'm not mad at you, Greg. I just wanted to clarify, because when people are like, oh, you get your own planet, I'm like, no, that was not the promise that was made to me. Fuck that.
You know, I think I can help you mitigate your anger there. Just consider that if they are right, and you do get to become a god and create your own universe, then according to Carl Sagan, you can make an apple pie from scratch.
Actually, the way it works is they tell you as a little child that you get to become like God until you hit young women's and when you're a girl, and then they tell you no, you don't get to create the universes, you get to create the babies while your husband does all of that.
Yeah.
That pisses me off so bad.
So
yeah, that's really got you like having the rug pulled out under you.
You can see why I'm extra salty about that particular doctrine. Because it was like, wait, I don't get, because they're like, well, you need the priesthood in order to have God's authority to do these things. And I'm like, but I don't get the priesthood. And they go, well, no, but your husband does. And I'm like, so you're telling somebody who likes to make things. Like, granted, I am very niche in what I can create, but you're telling somebody who likes to create and make things and come up with pretty designs and is super crafty that she doesn't get to actually do the making, she just gets to do the babysitting. And I was just that's why I was like, all of these things you're telling me basically sound like hell. Like, there are some people, and there are some women who, for them, that's an absolute, that would be the greatest thing on earth, because they love doing the child rearing and the subservient wife thing, and I got no problem with that. Thing is that doesn't work for everybody, and it shouldn't be laid out like that's what it's supposed to be for everybody.
But would they have loved that that gender role if they were not indoctrinated to it from birth to think that that's how they should act and behave?
So I would say some, maybe even most, yes. But I have met some people who absolutely, if they had enough money, would try to raise 20 kids. It's hard. I can't make that determination for people. But there are some people who would truly, honestly be happy with that. Because if you're indoctrinated to think that you like it, but you don't, there's going to be a part of you that's going to be absolutely miserable.
I have to say, I've known one woman, who didn't have the religious indoctrination that might have actually been okay going along with that, just because she said she really enjoyed being pregnant. So I think she would be happy to be pregnant all the time.
Oh yeah, there are some women out there who just, it's absolutely the most wonderful thing on earth for them to be pregnant. I
I
don't
would-
get it,
I
but
would think that would be to be expected, due to our evolutionary traits. Obviously, we want to breed and so forth, and there would be some that would want to have more children, and some that would want to have less, or as I like to kind of think of it, like this is the Bisexual Awareness Day. I kind of think of it from an evolutionary perspective. Evolution doesn't care how many children we have. It doesn't care how many. It doesn't care what we have sex with. As long as we're having sex and reproduce, that's all that we need to do to survive as a species. And that being said, with what you're talking about, yes, I would expect some women, or some men too, to want as many kids as possible, and so forth. That's just kind of how it is.
yeah, and like I said, I'm not saying that some aren't indoctrinated to think that way. Hell, the Mormon Church tried, but I have met some people who are genuinely happy raising a boatload of kids. They're at their happiest when they have lots of kids around them, and that's what they do. I have met people who are genuinely happy being in service to other people. My mom was one of those kinds of people. She absolutely adored volunteer work. And it wasn't just because she was told that's what she should do. She actually got happiness out of it. And so that's what she spent most of her time doing once we were raised.
Now, see, I have to say that with a qualifier. I like doing things for other people when they express that they appreciate it. If they think I'm just expected to do it, fuck you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No. She didn't like it when people just expected her to just like show up and do things. But she absolutely, like, she coached Brain Brawl at my school. She volunteered for Latin Club. She volunteered for the SAC committee. She volunteered at church. I mean, that was her thing. She enjoyed helping other people. And she enjoyed being out of the house. She did not like being a mom. She was indoctrinated that she should be a mom and that she should like it, but she did not like being a mom until we were teenagers.
Hey, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm getting sick for no damn reason. So I'm gonna get out of here.
Okay, well, thanks for giving us all the update,
Yeah, hang in there, kid.
Yeah, we're
Take
going to
care of
worry about
yourself.
you, so we need to hear from time to time what's going on.
Take care of yourself as best you can.
Yeah, it's a bummer that he's going through that.
There we go. Yeah.
Eyeball planets? Y'all are weird.
I hope this isn't in reference to the eyeball planets, but
Microraptor,
Oh, the apple pie.
Compelled Unbeliever has a lot of medical issues. And the most recent is they think he might be going through mini strokes. He's had strokes in the past, and which makes him at higher risk to have them again. Plus, he also has a family history of it. So,
Yeah.
hopefully, they get that sorted out. I don't know. There's not a way to prevent strokes, is there?
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
I
it
know.
depends what's causing them. If they can determine
Yeah.
the cause, there are ways to kind of reduce the odds, but not really to prevent them.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
exercise, which would be hard for him because I believe he's got a mobility issue. I can't remember.
No, I don't think he has mobility issues. I think he gets around well enough. But
He,
No,
he was
no,
having
no.
he was having vertigo symptoms.
Vertigo
So now,
symptoms, and also
yeah.
don't some of his joints dislocate? Sometimes
I
thought he'd
hadn't heard
mentioned
him
that in
say
the
that.
past.
I don't
Okay.
remember that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
Hypermobility.
well, he was
That's the
saying
word I'm
that
looking
after
for.
these recent episodes, he's having problems with his hands and that.
Yeah.
So he's lost quite a bit of coordination. Is what I'm taking from it. Yeah, it's scary stuff. My uncle is in a long care facility because he had a stroke and basically has no control of the left side of his body anymore.
Ouch.
So there's a history of it in my family, and I think I'm generally in better physical condition than most of my family's been in at this age. But yeah, for a lot of them, it started by the time they were 60. So I'm getting close to that mark.
Yeah, well, hopefully you got the genetic lottery and didn't actually. I know that's a long shot, but still.
Well, I know for a lot of them, the alcoholism has been a big factor of it. So
having you cut down on the alcohol helps. Good.
yeah.
I'm not going to ask you to stop because holy shit, if I were a drinker, I would be drinking all the fucking time at this point. Life is stressful. Like, I am so tired of this house.
Yeah, well, especially I think that's with a lot of people of, even people you get along with, if you're stuck with them 24 hours a day, you're going to grind on each other's nerves.
Oh, yeah. Well, and also I have the added thing of the only place in this house I can 100% be myself is in my room, and guess where I am most of the time now?
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of lucked out. I moved to this apartment right around, I think around the same time you moved, Purple.
I think you were just like a month after or something, yeah.
Something like that. And I made it here before the pandemic hit. So I think we were within a week of each other, and I'm completely on my own now. And I'm very much a homebody. I go to work, I come home. I go to the store when I absolutely have to. I go in there and get exactly what I need. I don't shop. I get my shit and get out. And I'm otherwise I spend probably most of my time here. So really nothing's changed other than wearing masks in public. And then I don't go into public very often. So nothing's really changed for me.
Yeah. I like being at home. I don't like people in general. I have very specific people that I could spend a shitload of time with, but I don't like people in general. So normally something like this would be fine if I didn't feel like I had to hide in my room, because my views on life are at such a contrast with the other two people in this house that I wouldn't say it's physically dangerous for me, but it's definitely emotionally dangerous for me to be myself in this house.
Yeah, that is a bummer.
Yeah. I would
Yeah,
like
and like
for this pandemic to be over.
yeah, Sloth Girl and I had to move together because we kind of need to be close, but we can't share a living space. So being in the same building is good, but having to share an apartment. And after the move, while we were setting up, we basically, stayed in the same apartment together for about a month. And yeah, we were getting pretty snappy with each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need my own space where I can close the door and keep everybody out.
Yeah, it can be hard to live with people. I've lived with family or friends most of my life. There's only like one other year I ever lived in a place on my own. So like I'm enjoying this immensely. I'm not meaning to rub
Yeah.
it in there, Tria.
Oh no!
Or
I
brag
don't.
or anything. I
I don't
wish.
wish this on anybody I care about. I do
Yeah.
think it would be hilarious for some people to have to live like this, but those are people like that. Those are people who really and truly deserve to not be able to express their opinions. If you understand my drift.
Yeah.
Like, I wish that people like Trump lived in fear of saying something asshole-ish so that we wouldn't have to hear him say anything asshole-ish. But
Yeah.
here we are.
Oh, imagine having to be in heaven with fucking Trump. That would most certainly be hell.
Trump is Christian and is an ex-Mormon. He'd be up on the next tier up from me. So I wouldn't be in heaven with Trump.
And I sure don't believe he's Christian at all. Somebody had posted. I saw a meme recently. So I don't know how much validity it has, but supposedly it was a quote from Trump saying something about being an atheist is great. Christians don't know shit about business or something on that order. It's not an exact quote, and I don't know if it's anything he really said, but if it is true, then he's admitted to being an atheist at some point. So
yeah, the more I hear from Trump, the more I begin to wonder if he couldn't actually be diagnosed as a psychopath, because I've never seen him demonstrate empathy for anyone.
Yeah.
I try not to go with the no true Christian bit because I find it hard to tell what people's intents and what's really going on in their brain. But Trump has no goddamn filter. He thinks it, he says it. So
well, that's
he's obviously using Christianity because he knows that he can rile up that section of the United States and uses bullying and fear-based tactics and knows that that'll resonate with people. And so it's easy for him to be like, well, yeah, I'm Christian. Look at our beautiful Christian values that we all share. And it's just like, they're not beautiful and we don't all share them.
Well, and that's what I was getting at is it's all for him. It's all what he can exploit. I didn't intend to do the whole no true Christian thing because I don't believe in that either. You want to know how many Christian denominations there really are? How many Christians are there? how many millions, or
Yeah.
billions. That's how many denominations there are. But this individual in particular, I'm convinced anyway, doesn't care about people's beliefs, atheist or religious. Everything about you is about what he can exploit.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's what I see in Trump.
Oh.
He's all about what's going to benefit him personally, and he doesn't seem to have any regard at all for who he hurts in the process.
Oh, no, he doesn't.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wish that I had the guts to whip back at some of my family members, they were like, "Oh, Trump is a businessman. He'll run the economy like a business." And I just want to turn around and just be like, "Okay, yeah, he is running the country like a business. You know what happens when you get sick? What does your boss do? He doesn't give a damn. He replaces you.
Yep.
If you can't come into work, he doesn't give a damn. He replaces you."
Yeah, this is a discussion when I was still living in Michigan. I had many times with my boss that he didn't seem to get that if Trump was going to run the country like a business, that wasn't a good thing for the workers.
No, because especially now.
Yeah, because the CEO of any major corporation has no clue what life is like for the people on the factory floor.
Nope, they don't. And on top of that, they don't. It's like, well, you can't come in. You're not useful to me. Bye-bye. I don't care.
Yep.
See ya. And that's exactly what's happening with Trump. He's like, get your asses back to work. And it's not that people don't want to work. It's people don't want to catch COVID and get disabled or die.
Yeah.
A lot of us would like for this shit to stop. And the best way to get this shit to stop is to support Americans while they quarantine. And yeah, no. Religion and narcissism can go hand in hand when you're talking about Christianity.
Yeah.
There's a reason why abusive leaders often go to Christianity over, say, paganism. Now, paganism does have its problems, but you're far less likely to find the amount of abuse on the same level as you are if you're going into a Christian religion.
Yeah, we have to say that
the Christian God is a narcissistic sociopathic asshole.
Yeah, well, paganism is a huge umbrella term that encompasses thousands of completely unrelated belief systems.
Yeah. But on the whole, they handle abuse better than Christianity does.
No.
Statistically, anyway.
Yeah, it varies so much group to group because unfortunately paganism is also a good breeding ground for cults.
Yeah.
Because there aren't really centralized religions, it's a good place for a charismatic leader to develop a small following.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
And I'm speaking this from 25 years in the pagan community, and
yeah, and I don't have experience in that, so
yeah.
I will.
So there's just such a huge variation. It's hard to make any generalizations there.
That's fair. It's just, it's hard for me to be like, he can't be Christian because he's a narcissistic sociopath. And I'm like, well, technically he's modeling after the God in the Bible. So
yeah,
I'm coming from that direction. Because again, we go back to the Bible says, love me or else, obey me or else. And that's how Trump operates. It's,
and the whole
love me or else.
Yeah. The whole heaven and hell thing is the carrot and stick. But the part that most Christians don't realize is that a big part of the religion is based on a threat.
Yeah. Well, and I also have a problem with, and I try not to mention this too much because I don't want to alienate my friends too badly who are Christian, who accept that I'm atheist. But one of my big problems with Christianity is, okay, so God's in control of everything. God can do anything he damn well pleases. So in order for us to get forgiveness, he has to murder his favorite kid in order for any of us to get real forgiveness?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if that ever made any sense to me. I mean, exactly what did Jesus die for?
Yeah, like, you could just be like, you know what, you done fucked up, kid. Let's work on it. Let's growth. Because one of the Mormon arguments is that sin exists in order for us to gain knowledge and to grow. That we could not grow without what they fucking call it, without trials and tribulations, is one of the reasons that they give to kind of counteract the whole omnibenevolent, omnipotent, omniscient thing. Is one of the things that they use as an argument against that. And I'm like, but still, like,
Yeah, I think at one time I gave my nephew far more of a jar than I intended to. Because again, my religious brother was, always referring to his oldest as, number one son, super kid. And at one point I said something about, yeah, look what God did to his first son.
My dad countered that with telling us both we were his favorite daughters. And then we'd look at him and say, we're your only daughters. And you'd say, yes, you're both my favorite. But yeah, I just, like, that was one of the things that, again, that is one of those things that Mormons have as part of their religion that is across the board with Christianity, is the whole Jesus had to die for our sins. And I'm like, but why? An omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent God could just be like, you know what? You done fucked up. Let's make it so that you don't fuck up again.
Yeah.
Could have made us not need a blood sacrifice to be what he wants us to be in the first place.
Yeah, like,
knowing that we were going to fuck up.
Yeah, you can still have, because again, you do have to learn things, and I get that, but like, there were certain things that God could have left out of the plan. Murder's one of them. There's a couple other things.
The whole forgiveness thing, I mean, this was even before I was a parent, but just the whole thing about, a father needing a blood sacrifice for forgiveness. I mean, as a father, shouldn't he have been saying, okay, kid, you messed up. You go apologize to the person you hurt, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, because, I've screwed up majorly a couple of times. And my dad was the one that I went to. And Dad didn't say, okay, well, somebody has to go die for it. My dad said, okay, you screwed up. Clean up your mess. If you need help, I'm here.
Well, again, growing up as a Christian, the part that really bothered me, and I was born in the Catholic Church, and the whole confessional thing was that you confessed your sins to the priest and you were forgiven. But there was absolutely nothing in there about apologizing to the person you hurt.
Or asking
that part
for,
really bugged me, even as a kid. Yeah. That was wrong.
Yep. Or asking for their forgiveness. Yeah.
Mormons have an element of that, but you are definitely supposed to go. You're taught. The problem is that you are taught that you are supposed to go and make restitution and apologize in order to repent, but that's you. The church doesn't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
the church talks for God and they can never be wrong, and even when they are wrong, they're not really wrong.
Right. And yeah, that doesn't work either, that the rules have to apply to everyone.
Oh yeah, I've had several arguments with people who are like, why aren't you mad at your parents? I'm like, I am upset with my parents that they thought that this was a great environment for me to grow up in, and that they sent me to a place to be abused. That doesn't fucking mean that the leadership is off the hook for saying shitty things. Like, a lot of the abuse that I faced was based completely off of general conference talks by the top 15 who said those things. And yes, I wish my parents had known better and done better, but that doesn't mean that the people who said those things and taught those things are off the fucking hook.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of got to something like that, like in my mid-40s, just before my father died, was I finally reconciled that, yeah, my dad fucked me up in a lot of ways, but he did what he thought was the right thing at the time.
Well, here's the thing. I'm upset that my young women's leaders taught me the sexist, misogynist things that they did. However, I don't feel that they knew any better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's what I
See-
came to with my dad, was he taught me based on how he was raised, and I know his father was grossly abusive.
Yeah, and my parents have trauma, both have trauma in their history, making it easier for them to fall prey to other forms of trauma and not
Yeah.
recognizing it. And so, yeah, I am a little bit upset at my parents. I understand they meant well. I understand that they didn't purposely put me in places to be abused.
Yep. So it's like I can't totally forgive my father, but I understand how it happened. And that's why I consider it to be my greatest accomplishment in life, that no one has ever said I'm anything like my father.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing. I am certain that the top 15 know they're running a scam. I am certain that they understand quite well that they're controlling and abusive.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of things. But I'm fairly certain they know. And that means that on top of being in a leadership position, because the way I look at it, if you're in a leadership position, you're even more responsible. If you're taking on that authority, you're more fucking responsible. You're not less responsible.
Yeah, and that was something I wrestled with a lot in the church, is that, you know, especially the Catholic Church, is that the priests at what level realized it was a scam, and at what level were they still doing it in good faith?
Yeah,
that was really hard to sort out.
That is hard to sort out in Mormonism too, because it's organized. And some bishops, I honestly and truly think that some bishops don't have any fucking clue about what's going on above them, and are just doing their best, and when I say bishops, I know that's also a Catholic term. I'm talking like your local pastor.
Yeah.
Some of them are good people who are just doing their best and don't know that it's all off and all wrong and incorrect. Some of them really do mean well.
Yeah.
But I feel like there has to be a certain point on the hierarchy where you just realize that it's not true. And you either lean in or you get the fuck out.
Well, I think that happens at some point. And then it comes to the question of, like, you know, if they find this out, but not until they've got 20 or 30 years invested in it. You know, how do they handle it at that point? It's like, it's kind of hard to get out, but you shouldn't be going along with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is there's a certain level where you actually, and Mormonism lies through their teeth about this shit. There is a point where you start actually getting paid to be in the clergy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was seeing, you know, with the Catholic Church, is like, you know, the junior clergy seem very enthusiastic about, you know, serving God and helping the community. The senior clergy, I was kind of having the sense that by the time they reached that level, they had figured this out, but they weren't saying anything because that's what, you know, gave them a house.
Well, and there's a certain point where you're not just getting a house anymore, you're getting all of your transportation free. You're getting all of your food for free. You get travel, you get prestige. Because that's a huge part of it, especially with the current prophet. If you watch the current prophet, I don't recall ever in my childhood the prophet holding Christian style rallies. But Nelson seems to love those. I've never heard of a prophet bringing in a child dying from cancer and saying, this child traveled to see me, and using a Christmas devotional to basically be like, this child is the perfect child because they came to see me. Now, granted, it's always kind of existed, but not on the scale that Nelson does. Nelson's really making it glaringly obvious instead of more subtle like some of his predecessors. And I'm wondering how people in the church are not seeing it.
Yeah, that's nauseating.
Oh, yeah, it is. I watch the Christmas. I occasionally tune in to Mormon shit so that I know what's being thrown at me. Granted, I'm having to do that less and less because my dad is basically like, I don't like anybody at church and I disagree with how things are being run. And he's kind of staying home because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And he is learning that I was taught very differently than what he was taught.
Yeah.
Because he was taught a more nuance.
I think the COVID's bringing that kind of thing up to a lot of people because they are realizing that the group gatherings are dangerous, so they're questioning the churches doing them.
Well, yeah, and also a lot of people are, especially in Mormonism, I don't know what it's like for other churches but a lot of people in Mormonism are going, hey, my Sundays are like a lot less stressful when we're not actually going.
Yeah.
Because you have to factor in, because a lot of Mormons, not all of them, but a lot of them have like a boatload of kids and you're trying to get all of them dressed and out the door on time.
Oh, yeah.
And
well, that was part of it for me, that I was the youngest of 9. So by the time I came along, you know, church really wasn't a thing except Christmas and Easter. My mom had kind of given up trying to get all the kids ready for church.
Yeah, my mom never gave up on that idea. Although I think that the hold that the Mormon church had on her is the same as the one on my dad, is just the whole family is together forever thing.
Yeah.
Because those two, while they were dysfunctional as hell, they adored each other.
Mm-hmm.
They would fight like fucking hell. But, like, that's actually the only reason I think my dad is still Mormon, to be honest. Especially after some of the shit that I've told him. He's not quite processed all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But he's pretty much going, you were taught wrong. And I was like, yeah, I was taught wrong. That doesn't mean you were taught right.
Yep.
I basically told him a lot of things that happened in Young Women, and he was just like, why didn't you tell us that was what was going on? And I was like, well, y'all pushed church so much and said that the church was true and the doctrine was true, and the doctrine says that the church is the final authority on everything. So how do you expect me to realize that that's not normal or okay or good?
Yep. Well, and hopefully your dad will start to like see the pieces crumble, kind of come to the realization on his own that none of it's right.
I'm
I know you're not holding your breath, but
well,
we can
and
hope.
also I'm not sure I want to deal with the fallout of him realizing that he's not actually still married to my mom. I would prefer for him to just become inactive. Like, I don't care if he still believes, but just going inactive and not ever really going back would actually be preferable. Because you have to realize my dad still thinks he's married to my mom because they made vows for the afterlife. As part of Mormon doctrine.
Yeah.
So, on the one hand, while it would be nice for him to not be Mormon anymore, I'm not 100% sure that would be worth it. Because if my dad mentally breaks, guess who gets to pick up the pieces?
Yeah. Okay, so here's hoping he comes to the realization without it shattering his poor mind.
That's fair. I don't think that's going to happen. Like I said, I would just like for him to be inactive. Just not go back.
Well, and that's the whole devastating part of it too, is when when people start coming around, some people just, I guess, have become so dependent on those beliefs, whether they're so indoctrinated or so predisposed to it in the first place, that it's traumatic.
It
when
was
you
traumatic
basically,
for me.
Yeah.
when you're, and I guess it wasn't so traumatic for me, having been through it twice. But I think I was always very doubtful, just lingering doubts through most of my life. I certainly had my times when I was more, I guess, faithful or more believing, but I mean,
Yeah.
I had doubts for a long time, so it wasn't so bad for me. But for some people, it is really hard, really damaging.
Well, and the longer somebody's been in it, the more they've got attached to it, the more episodes of their life are intertwined with the religion.
Yeah, and like I said, my parents absolutely adored one another. My parents loved each other, like really and truly loved each other. And so for my dad to think that he wouldn't be married to my mom anymore would actually be the most devastating thing to him. Next, I'd say about equal with either my sister or I passing away.
Yeah, no, and, with my fiance too, that, she was Christian, and I don't think she could have given it up just because, she still had that belief that eventually she would be with her sister in heaven.
Yeah, that one was a hard one for me to personally give up because y'all know I adore my little sister. My little sister, she and I are pretty tight.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's, I think that giving up that belief would have been a major trauma for her. So it's
Yeah.
like, I wasn't completely atheist when I was with her. That really didn't totally happen until she died. But, I really wasn't following anything at the time. So we had a lot of discussions about religion, but I don't think it was something that she could have ever done.
I don't know now that I'm atheist, and I consider myself a soft atheist. Like, it's a part of how I view things, but there are other parts of me that feel more important and are more pronounced. But I honestly don't know if I could date a Christian at this point, just because the God of the Bible sounds so icky to me.
Yeah. At this point, I don't know if I could live with a Christian without seeming condescending to them. Even if I didn't intend to do it, I had a feeling that would wind up coming across that way.
Yeah, and I hate that fact because to me, religion really shouldn't come in between a relationship. But at the same token, it's just like, that is just so gross to me
Well,
at
and
this point.
all the time that I was pagan, I was dating and living with people who were Christian. But there was still kind of more of a balance there of still believing in some higher power. But being atheist now and basically that I would discredit all of that, I think would make it much more difficult than it had been just being of different religions.
Yeah, I just, like, I can handle it in friendships because I'm not really living with it. We're not on that extremely intimate level. I can be, but it's just, I thought about it the other day and I was like, yeah, there's another layer to the me not ever dating. Yay!
Well, I think I might be able to even date a Christian, but we couldn't live together.
Living together is part of what I want out of a relationship.
Yeah.
Which I know sounds really strange, probably coming from me.
No, I get it.
No, not at all.
But it's, I want something that's kind of as intense as a romantic relationship, but operates more like a friendship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we're also living together.
I totally get it that, even if you're not feeling romantic, you want to have a steady companion you could count on.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Companionship. There's, it's completely natural for humans to seek companionship.
Yeah.
Of various kinds,
For you, it might look a lot more like a sibling relationship would look to other people.
I don't know that I would call it a sibling relationship. We have talked a little bit before about that line with me between sensual and sexual.
Yeah. Again, I know that's a bad analogy. It's just the closest thing I can come up with. I think most people would understand.
That's fair. And the problem is not you. The problem is that our fucking language does not have the capability of expressing this shit in a very good way. Like, we expect everything to be black and white on the binary, and our language is around that. So how do you talk about stuff that's not quite romantic and not quite sexual and not quite friendship? There's those in-between areas that we don't really have the vocabulary for.
Yeah.
And it frustrates me because I have to spend a lot of time trying to get people on board and understanding where I'm coming from.
Best I can come up with, Vulcans. Be like the Vulcans. Pretty much remove.
Yeah.
Pretty much
Except-
remove all emotion from the conversation if you can.
Yeah, except you're talking about emotions though, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where it gets tricky. But yeah, I've actually been
Well,
compared
Vulcans
to
discuss
Vulcans
emotions
before.
all the time.
I've been compared to Vulcans before, and I know it's basically been a compliment, but I'm just like, I don't think you understand.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't.
Than a Vulcan.
Yeah, I wasn't calling you a Vulcan. I was actually encouraging you to be like one. So
Yeah, I try, and sometimes I think after a while I can get it if I can understand where that other person is coming from. But it's definitely hard because there's a language barrier there that
Mhm.
is reflective of the fact that our society thinks that, as I put it once, everybody assumes that romance is a straight line from first date to marriage, when it's all a bunch of wibbly wobbly, humany woomany stuff all in between.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, most certainly. There's a lot of advancement that needs to be done with the English language. Now, a lot of stuff is broken that needs to be fixed.
Oh yeah, well, and it doesn't help that one again, especially as Americans, we like to have everything simplified and down to its barest bones, and it needs to be black and white. And
Well,
two, we've also English language basically takes other languages to the dark alley, stabs them, and goes through the pockets for spare vocabulary and grammar.
Yep.
yeah, and it's doing it with itself, especially these days.
Yeah. Well, and it is something our society's just trying to come to grips with, is the idea that there isn't just one relationship model that everyone needs to follow.
Right. You got two individuals at minimum involved in that relationship, and they're each one's a unique individual. You need to find something that works for those individuals.
Yeah.
Well,
Those two or more people.
Any relationship needs to be defined by the people involved, and what anyone outside of it thinks is nobody's business.
The problem is that you typically don't learn that shit until you've learned all the other shit. And sometimes you don't even unlearn that.
Yeah, I didn't learn that shit until I was well into my 30s. That's really the only advantage I have with these conversations with a lot of people in the community, is just that, I've been through it all already. I've been through multiple long-term relationships. I've raised kids. I'm done with all that stuff already. So, the only advantage I have is the hindsight.
For me, I never wanted the kids. I'm a romantic, demi-alterous. I am pretty much want to stay abstaining from sex. Would actually be the best sort of relationship for me. I have my little sister. Like, don't get me wrong, my life is very, very full and I'm happy with it. It's just, it would be a little bit of icing on the cake to have a relationship.
Yeah.
But what I want out of it is not typically what most people seem to want. Because most people want kids. And I get that. If that's what you want, go for it. Just don't ask me to do it for you. Because while I like kids, I really have learned I should not be in charge of them.
Well, yeah. And I would certainly like to have somebody around for the cuddling and the sex, but I don't think that I want to permanently be living with anyone. So maybe somebody who comes over a couple of days a week and then goes back to their own place would probably be ideal.
I like the idea of having separate bedrooms, but being in the same house. Because there are some nights where it's like, yes, I want to cuddle with you and have you here and like fall asleep together. And then there are other nights where it's just like, get the fuck out of my face. Yeah. I don't want you around right now. But that will change in the morning. Yep. So I want you to sleep here so that when I wake up in the morning and I want to see you, you're actually there.
Yeah, one of the things I've learned from my long-term relationships is I need a lot of downtime alone.
I'm very much the same.
Yeah, I need periods that for 6 or 8 hours, no one will talk to me.
Yeah, that's where I know I'd have some difficulties.
Yeah,
in a relationship, because there are times I really need the solitude.
Yeah, that's why I think it would be best if it's somebody who has their own apartment, that we can do things together, even an ongoing thing that would be, 2 or 3 days straight being together. But then after that, go away and leave me alone for a day.
That's fair. I actually, yeah.
And well, in my case,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, in my case, I think it has a lot to do with being an introvert, and I just get overloaded and overwhelmed if I have too much social stimulation.
Yeah, well, for me, I know part of it's the Asperger's, is that after a series of events, I need processing time. I need to sit quietly in the dark and mentally process all the events that happened.
Yep. I kind of do too.
I don't really need space so much as when you're in my space, I don't need to feel like it's being invaded unless I asked you to invade it. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't care if I see you all the time or we're in the same room all the time. There are going to need to be some quiet times where you're doing your thing and I'm doing my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then there are going to be other times where it's like, hi, you must pay full 100% attention to me. Hi, I'm here. I've been told that I'm very cat-like in my friendships and my relationships.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. See, for me, that's part of why poly worked so well, is because if my fiance, had a date with somebody else, I was like, cool, I've got the night off. That it was like, okay, nobody's expecting anything of me. I can go do my own thing now.
Yeah, I don't get the whole idea of like, oh, you're in a romantic relationship, that one person is supposed to be everything for you. I'm just like, no, that's more than one person can do.
Even as a kid, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking that one person is supposed to be your everything to you for the rest of your life. I don't want that kind of pressure of anyone expecting that of me.
Well, like, I don't understand the concept, because it's like, yeah, there are certain things that you're going to do in a relationship that you wouldn't do outside of it. And that's for you as two individuals or more to decide if you're in a poly relationship. But that's between the individuals involved. I don't want somebody to be my everything. I want somebody to be there for specific things. There's going to be specific things I'm going to want. And then the rest of the time, I'm going to be like, look, all right, I'm going to go over here with my friends and we're going to go out and we're going to have fun. I'll catch you later. It's so toxic to me to expect one person to suit all of your needs.
Yeah.
Well, I'm monogamous myself.
I'm monogamous too,
but-
but the thing is that I don't expect my partner to be everything to me.
Yeah, and I wouldn't either. I mean, there's still a separate individual. They got their own life to live, of course. But I mean, I certainly could not handle being in like a polyamorous relationship. I'm quite hung up on the whole cheating thing, and and it's not like I'm gonna go after a person and get into a relationship, find out they're poly, and then say, well, no, you made this commitment to me, you can't be poly. I'm looking for a person with the same sensibilities I have.
Yeah. It's just,
and I'm not gonna, I don't want to expect, all kinds of things, from my prospective partner. It's, I mean, I don't want to force a person to be with me. I'd rather be with a person. I'd rather be with a person who wants to be here. If you don't want to be here, there's the door. It might hurt me a little, but your freedom's more important than my hurt.
yeah, and it depends on how that person handles it. Like, if it's like that's a deal breaker for me and you walk away, then yeah, it does hurt. It hurts a lot.
Yeah.
I have had to deal with that a lot. I guess the way things that I'm coming from is the way I feel about my closest friends. I feel as intensely for them as I have any, I guess you could call them romantic partners, because we were technically in a romantic relationship, even though I wasn't romantic myself. But I feel as intensely about my best friends as I do my romantic partners. And people find that very off-putting.
I've known other people like that, so I understand that.
And I understand to a degree why it's off-putting, but I don't think it would be nearly as widespread if we didn't teach that one romantic partner was supposed to be your everything.
Right.
Like, it would still happen, but I don't think it would be as prevalent.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to hop off of here. My phone is about dead and rather hot.
Okay, well, I've been going over 2.5 hours, and I'm rather tired, so I think I should wind this up.
Yeah.
Alrighties.
Okay, Triaz, good to have you in here again. You
Yeah.
haven't been so active lately, so we have wondered what's going on with you.
Mostly
indeed.
just, I know I shouldn't isolate because it makes things worse, but feeling isolated makes it hard to reach out.
Yeah.
And also hard to deal with other people.
Yeah,
Like,
a lot of us can get that. And it's
yeah. It's like, and also there's been a few disconnects lately where I just don't feel connected with groups as much. And so I've been pulling away from most of the groups that I've been in. And it's nothing personal. And I'm not trying to get away from specific people. It's just group dynamics right now.
That's the exact same for me too. It's a weird thing. Like I feel isolated, but I've made friends and I enjoy their company. Yeah. But there are times where I don't feel like I belong or I'm accepted, even in spite of the fact that people have been nothing but kind and accepting to me.
Well, there is a self-preservation instinct that when you're feeling vulnerable, you just want to retreat to your den until you feel you've healed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's playing. And also, COVID has stressed everybody out.
Yeah.
So things that are normally like small things that don't really usually
Mhm.
blow up have been blowing up. And like, I have been put in the middle of about 6 different friends fighting. And
Mm.
some of them purposely tried to pull me in and some of them accidentally did it, and I'm just like, I can't handle these group dynamics. I can't right now.
Yeah, it's very
Mhm.
difficult.
So, but yeah, I'm gonna try to be around more, but I can't make any promises. If anything earth shattering happens though, Purple, I will message you privately. I've just not been wanting to reach out.
Yeah, well, just as long as you drop a message to someone in the group, just so somebody can post that they've heard from you. The thing I have a really hard time with is how many people online have just disappeared and I never knew what happened.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, if anything earth shattering comes up, I will let people know. I'm just
Yeah.
tired. I'm tired of the news. I am tired of COVID. I am tired of the stress bringing out the worst in people, especially the ones that I care about. I am tired of hiding and my
Well,
only
yeah.
options being.
And then you get online and there's all the YouTube and Twitter drama.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and like I have atheist stuff, ex-Mormon stuff, arrow stuff, and asexual stuff on top of the worldwide stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just it's causing me to kind of shut down a bit.
Oh yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
And I can't drop the arrow and the asexual stuff. I can drop the atheist and dip in and out of the ex-Mormon.
Yeah, well, you've got to prioritize, what you think is the biggest part of your life.
Indeed.
Yeah. In fact, the past week we've been dealing with people. Let's see. Somebody joked about putting aces in genocide in internment camps. Somebody said that only aces can say the word virgin in an attempt to troll people and make aces look bad. And then somebody said that asexuals can't be kinky, and now we're having to re-educate everybody on that. Which that one isn't as bad, but still. And somebody accused aromantics of being sexual abusers a couple of weeks ago. So that's all been fun.
Oddly, I can actually see where a lot of asexuals would be drawn to the kink, as you say about being sexual but not sensual.
Well, and also some aces are very, like, kink is very, very ranged and varied. And it would, if you don't have sexual attraction or emotional attachment to a sexual partner that you're playing with, it's easier to separate your kink from having an actual relationship if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Because some aces are very, very sexual. And then you have other aces who are into kink because there are non-sexual forms of kink out there.
Well, that's
and so
what I
they
was
get into
actually
that.
thinking, that my experience with the kink community, that there were a lot of people that, were in various kinds of play, but had limits to it not being sexual.
Yeah, well, there are some aces who are kinky and sexual. Aces are just as varied as kink is. So
yeah.
to say that they're not involved in kink is very much misinformation, because it's like, I know some aces who do sexual kink, and it's easier for them to not form attachments that they don't want with their play partners,
Yeah.
because they're not looking for a relationship with their play partners. They just want somebody to do their kink with them and have fun with them and have mutual respect and things like that. So it's a very individual thing. And one of the big things in kink that isn't taught outside of kink very well is consent. And that is actually one of the biggest things that we have to discuss in the asexual community, is trying to get everybody to understand what consent truly is.
Well, and not just consent, but in kink, there's a lot more very explicit negotiating. So people, so that both people involved know what the scene is going to involve before it starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you've already said, hey, these are things you can't do. These are things I like. These are things that might be on the table depending on the situation.
Yeah. So that people have an opportunity to explicitly spell out their limits much more than would happen in a more, traditional type of relationships.
Yeah, and I can understand why there's a draw to that. I'm not kinky myself. I'm not involved in BDSM, but it's kind of, it gives me warm, squishy feels that that's such a part of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something I wish I had growing up, was the information and the ability to negotiate and the words for things, and being able to say, okay, this is, these are the limits, and having and giving the empowerment to walk away when those limits are broken.
Oh, I know what you mean. I wish I had understood that stuff when I was in my 20s.
So yeah, it's been fun. People don't understand asexuality and think they do and spout off. It just drives me up a wall.
Well, I've said honestly, asexual is the part that's been the hardest for me to wrap my head around, just because I'm so far on the other end.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Well, and I've also joked about how for most people, all of those different parts, the sex drive, the attractions, all of that for most people works together in enough of a fashion that they don't have to break it down and think about it. For me, none of that shit works together. So I have to figure out how all those little parts work, because they don't all fit together. I've joked about my aesthetic attraction being the most useless thing ever, because basically all it is, hey, you're very pretty and I just want to stare at you, which is rude.
Sorry, I had missed this earlier from Nerdy, but I had to.
Yeah, people are jerks. And like I said, we're all stressed right now because the world is basically ending.
Yeah.
And so we're all making things worse.
But yeah, I have had a few unusual relationships, as far as the lines of intimacy and what would be considered sexual or not. So it's like I can understand it a lot, because I have a big disconnect between the emotional and the sexual. It's kind of like I crave both, but they don't have to come from the same person.
For me, and it's because we're taught that certain kinds of touch between specific kinds of people are inherently sexual, but in my brain, they're not. And the thing is that I can go pretty far down the line before I think something becomes sexual, while somebody else has already clicked in their brain that that's a sexual act for them. And we don't admit that as a culture either, where there's a gray line where there's some things that are obviously just sensual.
Yeah.
But there's a gray line where for some people it clicks that that's sexual, and for others that's still sensual. And that's really hard for me as a gray ace, because for other people, often they're turned on and already on the sex thing, while I'm like, I'd just like to stay in this little zone here. This is where
with one of my exes, I actually did belong to 2 swingers groups with her. You know, we went to some of the parties that everybody was playing and trading partners and so forth. But there were some couples there that, you know, one or the other of them played and the other one didn't. So one of the couples we knew, you know, she went to the parties just to socialize, but she wasn't being sexual with anyone but her husband. But at one party, I just spent an hour brushing her hair.
Oh yeah, that's for me. And see, the thing is that sensual also isn't inherently romantic for me either, because I crave just like flopping on the couch and being held. To me, that is a sensual act because it is extremely intimate. But that's not inherently romantic to me, because that's something that I would do with not just my partner, but with close friends as well.
Yeah.
So that's, again, we need to, as a society, admit and start being like, different things mean different things to different people, and we need to communicate that shit better and not have the expectation that if you care enough about somebody that all of those parts are going to fit together.
Yep. Cuddling doesn't always have to lead to sex.
I have met several people where that is the lead-in for sex, and that is, and let me tell you, as sex repulsed ace, that is the most uncomfortable thing. Like, not the worst thing, but it just awkward and uncomfortable thing. That is one of the most uncomfortable things.
Well, yeah.
It's
Yeah, just when you reach a point of realizing that the other person is expecting something out of this that you weren't planning on.
Yeah, but it's like that 24/7 with most people in a romantic that I've been in a romantic relationship with. And it's like, no, sometimes I just want to be held.
Yeah.
And it's pretty common.
I'm the same way on that. I really enjoy cuddling, and it doesn't have to be necessarily sexual. I almost prefer it, you know, over the sex. And after the sex, I really enjoy cuddling.
Well, my best memories with my fiance are really just, you know, that she would be laying on the couch and I would be sitting on the floor in front of her, and we'd be like watching science or nature documentaries, and she'd be playing with my hair.
And of course, I mean, come on, with a name like Doc Fearsome, I'm obviously a cuddler.
Cuddly as a porcupine, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Cuddly as a soccer ball set on fire.
Well, and I am very upfront about being gray ace, because I don't want somebody to come back behind me and be like, well, you never told me. And it's just like, fuck you. It's in messages. I have it on my profile. I have flags everywhere.
Yeah.
That's actually a protection for me. But people often think that asexual means you're touch repulsed and you're sex repulsed and you're sensual repulsed. And yes, I am sex repulsed, but you shouldn't automatically assume that. because I know some gray aces and
Mhm.
demis who are actually hypersexual, or not even hypersexual, just have it on as kind of like an ambient noise in the background. But it's just like, well, you're not interested in anything. Why do you want to date? And I'm just like, I am interested in some stuff. Why don't you ask me instead of fucking assuming?
Mhm.
And if you don't like the answer, walk away instead of being an asshole about it.
Well, and people should just be honest with each other and upfront about all their issues and what they're expecting, and risk not having that intimate or romantic or whatever relationship you're looking for. It just may not happen with that person.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just I guess I was pretty much done.
Yeah, well, the thing is that well-meaning friends would tell me that being so upfront made me look like a psycho, and I was just like, but how the hell do I get what I want? Like,
Yeah, and people need to get over that kind of prejudice, really, and like
yeah,
the whole, and what, and it's like, what exactly is wrong with saying "I love you" on the first date and all that other stuff?
I
All
would
these
be a
silly
little bit
rules for
concerned.
dating and stuff.
I would be concerned about hearing "I love you" from somebody who doesn't know me. But I do have a problem, and I've had a problem with this in the past. When women bring up children, it's always assumed that the woman is bringing them up because she's planning on forcing you into having them with her.
Mm.
And I prefer to say I don't want children early on because I don't want to get attached to somebody and then have them find out I don't want kids 6 months on.
Yep, I agree. I'm the same way.
That's such a big thing. That is a deal breaker. That is a deal breaker for damn near everybody. Like, there are some people who feel ambivalent about it, but most people have strong feelings either way. So I should be able to on the second or third date, be able to say, without that person thinking that I'm some kind of crazy person trying to trap them, be like, look, do you want kids? Because if the answer is yes, walk away, find somebody who does. Because if you want kids, you should have the ability to have them. I'm not going to be able to provide that for you. But that's seen as crazy.
Yeah, and it being seen as crazy is what's crazy.
Yeah. Now, if you're like trying to convince a guy that they are the one second date in, and it's like, we're going to have beautiful children together and this and that and the other, I can see where that's coming on strong and guys would want to run. I can totally see that. But you should be able to at least mention, hey, this is a big thing that's probably going to be a deal breaker. Let's go over all the deal breakers early on. And then if we miss something, we miss something. But at least we attempted to not get too emotionally invested in each other before realizing that we're really not compatible.
Yep, everybody deserves to know what they're getting into.
Yeah, and I hate that is thought of as being crazy and coming on too strong. I really resent that. It is one of the things I resent most.
Yep, I agree. Unfortunately, my phone is about to die.
Yeah,
like probably any minute.
Yeah,
okay,
and
now we were trying to wrap it up here.
that he was trying to wrap it up about half an hour
It's been an awesome
ago.
conversation, though.
Yeah, it has. Good night, folks.
Okay, well, thanks
Be
everybody
kind
for
to
coming.
each other.
I'll be back tomorrow night at midnight, so we'll see you all then. Bye bye.
Alrighty, night.
TTFN.